It's my first field test for the brand new Mavic 2 drone. Got the Mavic 2 Pro over here, Mavic 2 Zoom down that end, and my original Mavic Pro in the center. Now what I'd like to do is put them up in the air individually. I'll send them down the length of the field and back again, and that way I can compare the video side by side. I'll also spend a little time with the Mavic 2 Zoom showing you how that optical zoom works so you can get an idea of how good a quality picture it provides. So stay tuned and we'll get started. Okay, first up is the Mavic Pro. I'm not going to say I have a favorite child, but I can't wait to get this guy up in the air and see how well it does. So here we go.
Take off. The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
Okay, next up is the Mavic 2 Zoom. I'm going to send this guy downfield the same way.
Take off. The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
Okay, last up is my old buddy, the Mavic Pro. Send this guy downfield, same pattern I flew before, so I can do a comparison between the three. So let's go.
Take off. The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
Okay, I'm down at one of my favorite lakes to film, and I've got the Mavic 2 Pro and the Mavic 2 Zoom. I'm going to put them both up, capture some amazing footage behind me, and we can compare the two videos when I get back to the shop. So stay tuned. I hope those video segments were helpful in illustrating how absolutely incredible the image quality is on both versions of the brand new Mavic 2. Now, as much as I love that Mavic 2 Pro with its larger sensor and better image quality that gives me a lot more flexibility in post to make adjustments, I was blown away by the Mavic 2 Zoom's image quality as well, and in most cases when I'm flying for an afternoon, this quad produces an image that's well better than I need. It's way better than what the Mavic Pro originally produced. And one other advantage in the Mavic Zoom is obviously the optical zoom that it's got built in. Now I'm going to show you a couple of examples where that comes in handy next, but the other thing I want to point out is that I noticed after flying these things for 2 weeks, I've been flying them non-stop, charging batteries, getting them out any day that it wasn't raining, I've noticed the stability on these and the smoothness of handling is just way better than it was in previous versions. I think it's a combination of the new enhanced propellers and the sinusoidal ESCs they're using in the larger motors, but it is a heavier quad, and when I fly it on days like today where it's really windy, it does move a little bit in the air, it gets buffeted up there, but I have to tell you, the image is rock solid no matter what height I've got it at, so that gimbal assembly and the control mechanism behind it is doing an outstanding job of compensating for any little wiggle side to side or elevation change in the quad. And I'll show you in the next section where that becomes super important is when you zoom, because when you zoom, there's any tiny little movement. If you've ever used a DSLR without a tripod and tried to zoom in real tight, even the tiniest of movements gives you blur in the focus. This guy at a full 2x optical zoom is rock solid as well, and that's incredibly impressive to me. So I'm going to give you an illustration of how those zooms work in the next section. And I thought about it when I first bought the two quads and said to myself, when am I going to use the zoom? Is that going to be something that'll come in handy once in a blue moon? And it turns out there's actually a lot of cases where the zoom's going to help you. So I'll give you 2 use cases coming up next, and I'll show you also how it compares to the zoom on the Mavic Pro. So stay tuned. There are fundamentally 2 ways you can implement zoom in a camera. You can do it optically by physically varying the distance between a set of lenses inside the camera housing, or you can do it digitally where you're electronically manipulating the image as you're capturing it. Now the optical is much better for an image quality perspective. The digital tends to be pixelated, and you'll notice the picture gets a little grainier to do that. The Mavic 2 Zoom has both methods built in, so it's got a 2x optical zoom, it's also got a 2x digital zoom, and the trick here is that doing a digital zoom allows you to make changes to the image and actually enhance that to a zoomed image and correct any kind of movements in the quad. The optical zoom is a lot harder because it relies on the quad being rock solid in the sky. And we all know the quad's not going to sit in one place. It's going to move around, which means the gimbal and the electronics inside have to compensate for any tiny movement side to side or up or down to make sure that that camera stays rock solid on that image. And if you're shooting from a DSLR, you've got a tripod and you've got a long lens on it, you can make sure that it's not going to move at all. But when it's on a quad at 200 feet in the air with the wind buffeting it, it's no small feat to actually keep that image exactly centered and focused. So I was really blown away by the fact that the optical zoom in the new Mavic 2 Zoom works perfectly. And I'll show you a couple of examples of it coming up, but a lot of other quad companies out there, including DJI, have done digital zooms before. The Anafi came out with it. It does a real good job of it. It's compensating for any shake, both in the gimbal adjustments it's making and in inside the actual quad itself through digital means. But to have an optical zoom on a quad in the prosumer space, this is a first for anybody out there. So I was really, really impressed with how well the zoom works. So let me show you a couple of examples, then I'll come back and do some closing thoughts on the test that I did. All right, so this first example you're looking at is the Mavic Pro. Now, Mavic Pro had a digital zoom that allowed you to step through a couple of different steps to get closer to a subject, and it was really good because you could stay far away, you could sort of step up to the object and start your recording, whether you're taking pictures, you're taking images, but you couldn't really fluidly zoom against that object. It was really difficult to sort of start out far and then get closer to it over time. It was more of a set it and then start recording feature, which is okay. I mean, it was great that it was in there. If you look at the Mavic 2 Zoom, you're actually watching me now zoom in and then zoom back out, and it's a very smooth, fluid motion there. It really gives you a lot of control over at what point do I stop the zoom, or do I want to enhance the picture by zooming in and then zooming back out. It just gives you a lot more control over the image that way. So I thought to myself, when am I ever going to use the zoom? Like, it's kind of a cool feature, but I'm not about cool. I'm about, is it going to be functional? Is it something I'm going to put into practice and use when I'm out there filming? And I actually came across 2 circumstances that I'll illustrate next to show you where these things come in handy. So this next segment, I was out flying for the afternoon, and I fly in a field right next to a big farm, and they were grooming the ground. They were actually flattening the ground and throwing some seed down, and I wanted to get some images of the tractors moving through that dirt. And if you notice, there's a lot of dust being kicked up. So if I brought that quad in close and was flying near that tractor to get the picture I wanted or the video I wanted of that tractor, all that dust would get sucked up inside my quad. So I wanted to stay back, but the challenge is staying back away from that tractor didn't give me the image quality that I wanted, and I could always go in and do it digitally later and enhance it, but we know it's going to get pixelated. So having the zoom meant I could stay far enough away where I'm out of that dust cloud and still zoom in on that tractor and get exactly the detail I want. The best part is I can zoom in and fly along. You can see me railing along the side, watching that tractor move. So it gives me the ability to make those adjustments on the fly, stay at that focus point, and actually film from that point forward and then pull back out. So it's a much better way to do it, and it keeps my quad out of harm's way, which is really nice. Now the second one, I'm out flying on a lake. Now that island I'm looking at there, and you'll see it in a second, is an island that's off to the lake, and there's a lot of wildlife on there, and I know there's a lot of birds' nests on that particular lake. I have friends that use kayaks in that lake, and they all stay away from that island because there's a lot of young birds that are there, and it's a nesting place for a lot of animals, and I didn't want to get too close to it and disturb them, because if I fly that quad down near it to get the images I want of the water or the fauna that's down there, I'm going to scare everybody, and the birds are going to take off, and that's just not a good thing to do. So here I'm allowed to, or I should say here I want to get close to the island, but I'm staying back far enough, and I can use that optical and digital zoom to zoom in and get a rock solid, crystal clear picture of that island. So it allows me to not intrude on the wildlife that's out there, not bother them, and get the shot I want. So both of those features for me are great, because when I'm filming, I'm always around dusty environments or dirty environments, or I don't want to annoy somebody if I'm filming a home or some other location. For me to stay back and use that optical zoom to get in close and still get the same great image quality is a home run for me. So that's pretty much all I had for today. If you have any questions about anything I've covered, I know I went through a lot of stuff in this clip today, please drop them in the comments below. Now, I've been out flying these two quads for like the last 14 days non-stop, and I've got a ton of clips that I got to get back to. I apologize that I haven't put as many clips up as I normally do, but honestly, when you get two cool toys like this and you're out flying them, the last thing I'm thinking about is putting clips together. I'm just out flying, and I love it, just like you guys do. So I've got a lot of footage, a lot of things I want to talk about, so stay tuned to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'll ask you again to hit that subscribe button down there, because I have a ton of cool stuff coming, both on the Mavic series. I've got a bunch of other products that we're going to be reviewing that just came in. Some of them are pre-released, so I'm going to give you the first look at some of these products of anybody out there, so you're going to really enjoy that quite a bit. So anyway, that's pretty much it for today. I love flying, and I love putting these clips together, so I hope you guys are still finding value in them. I really appreciate you viewing, and I really appreciate the subscription. So thanks again for everything, and until next time, happy flying.